In the heart of the Zoltran galaxy, chaos erupted. A massive energy anomaly tore through space, swallowing stars and planets without warning. The once peaceful systems were now on the brink of destruction. No one understood the cause. No weapon could stop it. Fear spread like wildfire. High Commander Velker stood before the grand holographic map in the Galactic Council's war room. His silver eyes were wide with shock as he watched entire star systems vanish, consumed by the swirling dark energy. It moved like a hungry beast, growing larger with each passing moment. This can't be happening, Velkor whispered, his voice shaking. He turned to his advisors, who stood frozen, faces pale with terror. The air was heavy with panic. "The anomaly is spreading faster than expected," reported General Targos, his voice tight. "It has already destroyed 3 planets in Sector 7. Billions, gone in seconds." A wave of horror swept through the room. Velker slammed his fist on the table, the sharp sound breaking the heavy silence. "How is this possible? Our technology is the most advanced in the galaxy. Why can't we stop it?" His question hung in the air, unanswered. Even the brightest scientists had no explanation. They had tried everything: energy shields, quantum disruptors, even dimensional bombs. Nothing worked. The anomaly devoured all. "We need help," whispered Counselor Mira, her face pale. Her violet eyes were wet with fear. "We cannot face this alone." Velker's jaw tightened. The Galactic Council was the most powerful alliance in the universe. They ruled with strength and wisdom. Asking for help was unthinkable. It meant admitting weakness. But the images before him were clear. The anomaly was unstoppable. It was only a matter of time before it reached the core worlds. His home, his people, all would be lost. He looked around the room, seeing the fear in every face. Pride would not save them. "Activate the ancient communication array," he commanded, his voice steady. "We are sending out a distress signal to anyone who can hear us." His words were met with silence. The council members looked at him in shock. To ask for help from outsiders was a humiliation they never imagined. Yet, no one objected. Desperation had crushed their arrogance. The ancient array hummed to life, its golden ring spinning as energy surged through it. It was designed to reach the farthest corners of the galaxy, a relic from a time when the Council needed allies. Now, it was their last hope. Velkor took a deep breath and began the transmission. "This is High Commander Velker of the Galactic Council. Our worlds are under attack by an unknown energy anomaly. It destroys everything in its path. We cannot stop it. We need help from anyone who is willing to answer. Please, billions of lives are at risk." His voice trembled at the end. He hated showing weakness, but the truth was clear. They were powerless against this nightmare. The signal echoed through the galaxy, bouncing off ancient satellites, traveling through wormholes, reaching places even the Council had never explored. It carried the voice of desperation, a cry for salvation. As the message spread, Velker's heart sank. Would anyone even care? The Galactic Council was known for its arrogance and power. They ruled with an iron fist, showing no mercy to those who opposed them. Why would anyone come to their rescue now? His mind raced with fear. "No one will answer," he muttered bitterly. "We are truly alone." But far beyond the reach of the Council, the message reached a small blue planet on the edge of the galaxy, a planet ignored and underestimated for centuries. Earth. The humans received the call. Their leaders listened to Velker's plea, hearing the fear and hopelessness in his voice. And in their hearts, they felt something the Galactic Council had never known: compassion. As Velker stood in the war room, his head hung low in despair, he had no idea that help was on the way. He had no idea that humanity, the species he considered primitive and insignificant, was preparing to do the impossible. The galaxy was about to witness a power it never imagined. The Council's arrogance was about to meet humanity's courage. And nothing would ever be the same again. On Earth, in a secret command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, alarms blared. Red lights flashed as technicians rushed to their stations, faces tense with urgency. The ancient communication array, a relic from the earliest days of humanity's space exploration, had picked up a signal. General Samantha Hayes stood at the center of the chaos, her sharp green eyes fixed on the holographic screen before her. She was tall and strong, with short, silver hair that matched her no-nonsense demeanor. A veteran of countless battles, she was not easily shaken, but the message playing on the screen was unlike anything she had ever heard. "This is High Commander Velker of the Galactic Council. Our worlds are under attack by an unknown energy anomaly. It destroys everything in its path. We need help. Please, billions of lives are at risk." The room fell silent as the transmission ended. The voice had been raw with fear and desperation. It was a plea for mercy from a man who was clearly used to giving orders, not begging for aid. General Hayes narrowed her eyes. She knew all about the Galactic Council. They were powerful, arrogant rulers who dominated half the galaxy. They never asked for help. If they were calling out to anyone who would listen, the situation must be truly dire. She turned to her chief scientist, Dr. Ethan Parker, whose face was pale as he studied the data. "What's the status of the anomaly?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. "It's unbelievable," Parker stammered, his fingers dancing over the controls. "The energy readings are off the charts. It's devouring entire star systems, expanding rapidly. If it continues unchecked, it could reach Earth in less than a year." A heavy silence filled the room. Hayes's jaw tightened. This was no ordinary threat. If they didn't act, the anomaly would consume everything, including their home. She looked around at her team, seeing the fear in their eyes. But beneath that fear, she saw something else. Determination. Humanity had faced extinction before and survived. They were fighters, and they would fight again. Hayes took a deep breath, her decision made. "Prepare the fleet. We're answering the call." A murmur of shock ran through the room. One of her officers, Colonel Ramirez, stepped forward, his brow furrowed. "With all due respect, ma'am, are we really going to help the Galactic Council? After everything they've done, they've ignored us, looked down on us, even attacked our colonies." Hayes met his gaze, her eyes cold and sharp. "I haven't forgotten. But this isn't just about them. If that anomaly keeps spreading, it will reach us too. We fight now, or we wait to die later. I refuse to stand by and watch Earth burn." Her words hung in the air, heavy and unyielding. There was no room for argument. The officers exchanged determined nods, their doubts replaced with resolve. Parker looked up from his console, his voice trembling with both fear and excitement. "If we're going to stop this, we'll need the Aegis Protocol." A hushed gasp ran through the room. The Aegis Protocol was humanity's most powerful weapon, an experimental energy shield capable of neutralizing any force. It was their last resort, a weapon so dangerous that even its creators feared its power. Hayes' eyes darkened. She knew the risks. The Aegis Protocol had never been tested in live combat. If it failed, they would have no other defense against the anomaly. But if it worked, they could save billions of lives. "Activate the Aegis Protocol," she ordered, her voice steady. "And prepare the flagship, UES Valor. We leave in 24 hours. The room exploded into action. Officers barking orders as technicians rushed to their stations. Screens flickered with data as the fleet was mobilized. Earth's greatest warships powered up, their engines roaring to life. Hayes stood in the center of the chaos, her eyes fixed on the holographic map. The anomaly was growing larger, swallowing star systems without mercy. But Earth would not go quietly into the dark. They would fight. They would protect their home and the galaxy. As she watched the preparations, Hayes felt a cold determination settle in her heart. The Galactic Council had underestimated humanity for too long. They saw Earth as weak, primitive, insignificant. But they were about to learn the truth. Humanity was not just a survivor. They were warriors, forged by fire and struggle. And when they fought to win. The galaxy had called for help, and Earth was about to deliver the impossible. The hangar bay of the UES Valor buzzed with activity as crews loaded supplies and engineers ran final checks on the colossal battleship. Rows of sleek starfighters gleamed under the bright lights, their pilots performing last-minute inspections. The hum of machinery and the sharp bark of commands filled the air, a symphony of preparation for the battle to come. General Samantha Hayes walked briskly across the hangar floor, her eyes sharp as she took in every detail. She was dressed in her combat uniform, her medals gleaming against the dark fabric. Her presence commanded respect, and everyone who passed her stood a little straighter. By her side, Dr. Ethan Parker was busy tapping on his datapad, his face pale with worry. "The Aegis protocol is fully integrated into the Valor's core systems," he reported. "But it's still untested. If it fails, we'll have no defense against the anomaly's energy field." Hayes's face remained calm, her voice steady. "We don't have the luxury of fear, Doctor. If we don't stop this thing, Earth is next. We fight, or we die." Parker swallowed hard but nodded. He knew she was right. There was no turning back now. They reached the command bridge, a massive room filled with advanced holographic displays and communication consoles. Officers moved swiftly between stations, their faces tense but focused. At the center stood Colonel Ramirez, his posture rigid as he saluted Hayes. "All systems are operational, General. The fleet is ready to launch on your command." Hayes looked at the holographic map, watching the anomaly continue to grow, devouring everything in its path. Time was running out. They had to move now. She turned to the communication officer. "Patch me through to the fleet." The young officer's fingers danced across the console, and moments later, Hayes's voice echoed across every ship in the Armada. Her image appeared on screens in every control room, in every hangar, in every fighter cockpit. "Attention, all personnel. This is General Samantha Hayes. We face an enemy unlike any we've seen before. An enemy that threatens not just Earth, but the entire galaxy." Her eyes were cold and fierce. "The Galactic Council once looked down on us. They called us primitive, weak. But today they are begging for our help. Today we show them who we really are." Her voice grew stronger, filled with fire. "We fight not just to save their worlds, but to protect our own, to protect our families, our home. We are humanity, and we do not surrender. We do not run." She paused, letting her words sink in. "We stand, we fight, and today we show the galaxy what it means to be human." The fleet erupted in cheers, her words lighting a fire in their hearts. Even those who feared the battle ahead felt their spirits rise. They were not just fighting for survival. They were fighting for honor. For Earth. Hayes turned to Colonel Ramirez. "Initiate launch sequence." "Aye, General," he barked, his eyes blazing with determination. "All ships prepare for departure. Engage warp drives on my mark." Outside the massive windows of the command bridge, the fleet began to move. Hundreds of warships, from agile fighters to colossal battleships, powered up their engines. Their hulls gleamed under the light of distant stars, their weapons fully armed and ready for battle. The UES Valor rumbled beneath Hayes's feet as its powerful engines roared to life. The flagship was the most advanced warship humanity had ever built, armed with the latest technology and protected by the Aegis protocol. It was a symbol of Earth's strength, a beacon of hope in the darkness. "Warp drives engaged," shouted the navigation officer. "All systems stable. Ready for jump." Hayes took one last look at the blue and green planet on the screen. Their home, beautiful and fragile. If they failed, Earth would be the anomaly's next target. She clenched her fists, her resolve unbreakable. "Initiate jump." A surge of energy filled the ship as the warp drives activated. Space twisted and bent, stars stretching into streaks of light. The fleet vanished in a flash, hurtling through the void at impossible speed. Inside the command bridge, the crew held their breath as the ship shook violently. The strain of the jump was immense, but the Valor held strong. Hayes stood firm, her eyes fixed on the screen as the stars continued to blur past. After a few tense moments, the shaking stopped, space snapped back into place, and the fleet emerged on the other side, right at the edge of the anomaly. The crew gasped as the view screen filled with a sight beyond imagination. A massive swirling vortex of dark energy loomed before them, its tendrils stretching out like claws. Planets were pulled into its grasp, disintegrating into dust as they were consumed. It was a monster, a void that devoured everything in its path. And it was still growing. Hayes' heart pounded, but her face remained calm. She would not show fear, not now, not ever. She turned to Ramirez, her voice firm and steady. "Activate the Aegis protocol, and ready all weapons. We're going in." The crew sprang into action, their faces hard with determination. They were ready to fight, ready to protect their home. Humanity had answered the call. Now, they would show the galaxy what they were capable of. The battle for survival had begun. The UES Valor surged forward, leading the fleet into the heart of the anomaly's territory. The dark vortex loomed ahead, its swirling tendrils crackling with energy that seemed to defy the very laws of physics. Space itself warped around it, bending light into unnatural shades. It was a sight that sent chills down the spines of even the most battle-hardened soldiers. On the command bridge, General Samantha Hayes stood firm, her face a mask of determination. The tension was thick, every crew member focused on their task. The hum of machinery and the soft beeping of consoles were the only sounds as they approached the swirling chaos. "Activate the Aegis protocol," Hayes ordered, her voice cold and steady. "Prepare for impact." Colonel Ramirez's fingers danced over his console. Aegis protocol engage. Energy shields at maximum output. A shimmering blue barrier enveloped the Valor, pulsing with power as the Aegis protocol came to life. Similar shields appeared around the other ships, forming a protective dome that flickered with energy. Dr. Ethan Parker watched anxiously from his station, sweat beading on his forehead. The Aegis protocol was his creation, Earth's last hope against the anomaly's devastating power. If it failed now, they would be destroyed in an instant. A sudden tremor shook the ship as they crossed the anomaly's boundary. The energy field lashed out, clawing at the shields with bolts of dark lightning. The entire fleet shuddered under the assault, but the Aegis shields held firm, their glow intensifying as they absorbed the impact. "It's working," Parker exclaimed, relief flooding his voice. "The shields are holding." Hayes allowed herself a brief nod. "Good. Now let's show this thing what we're made of." Ahead of them, the anomaly twisted violently, reacting to their presence. From its swirling depths, monstrous shapes began to emerge, vessels forged from the same dark energy. Their forms were jagged and twisted, their glowing red eyes fixed on the human fleet. The crew stared in horror as the dark ships multiplied, forming an armada of shadowy predators. They moved with unnatural speed, circling the fleet like vultures ready to strike. Colonel Ramirez's voice was grim. "Enemy contacts incoming. They're fast, and there are hundreds of them." Hayes' eyes narrowed. "All ships, prepare for combat. Engage the enemy at will." The silence of space was shattered as the fleet opened fire. Streams of blazing plasma and beams of energy cut through the void, lighting up the darkness with bursts of color. The dark ships moved swiftly, dodging the first wave of attacks with inhuman agility. But the human pilots were skilled, their targeting systems precise. Explosions erupted as several shadowy vessels were hit, disintegrating into particles of dark energy. The rest retaliated with a fury that shook the fleet. Bolts of crimson energy slammed into the Aegis shields, sending ripples of power across their surfaces. The ships shuddered under the impact, but the shields held, deflecting the deadly blasts. Hayes gripped the railing, her voice steady and commanding. "Focus fire. break their formation. The fleet adjusted, their cannons locking onto the enemy ships with deadly accuracy. Coordinated volleys of plasma fire tore through the darkness, slicing through the enemy lines. More dark ships exploded, their twisted forms unraveling as they were consumed by the void. But the anomaly was not finished. It howled in fury, its swirling tendrils lashing out at the human fleet. One of the smaller frigates was caught in the grip of a dark vortex, its shields flickering as the tendrils tightened around it. "UES Orion is caught," shouted an officer, panic in his voice. "They're losing power." Hayes's jaw clenched. She would not lose any of her people, not today. All fighters, provide cover. Focus fire on that vortex. Swarms of starfighters broke formation, diving toward the Orion as their cannons blazed with fury. Streams of plasma bombarded the vortex, forcing it to release its hold. The Orion's engines flared back to life, and the frigate shot out of danger, its shields barely holding. Cheers erupted across the bridge, but the battle was far from over. More dark ships continued to pour out of the anomaly, their red eyes glowing with malice. It was a never-ending wave, each enemy more ferocious than the last. Colonel Ramirez's face was grim. "We're being overwhelmed. They just keep coming." Hayes's eyes never left the view screen. She could see the anomaly's core, a swirling mass of darkness that pulsed with energy. That was the source, the heart of the enemy. She made her decision. All ships advance toward the core. We cut off the head, the rest will fall. Her command echoed through the fleet. Engines roared as the human warships surged forward, blasting through the enemy lines. They moved as one, a spear aimed straight at the anomaly's heart. The dark ships reacted instantly, closing in from all sides. The battle became a chaotic storm of light and shadow, energy blasts crisscrossing through the void. The Aegis shields flickered under the strain, but they held firm, protecting the fleet as it charged forward. On the bridge of the Valor, Hayes felt her pulse quicken. The enemy was relentless, attacking with a ferocity that bordered on madness. Yet her people fought back with equal determination. They were warriors, defenders of Earth. They would not back down. The anomaly roared, its tendrils lashing out in fury, but the fleet pressed on, carving a path through the darkness. They were close now, the core's pulsating light filling the screen. Hayes's voice was fierce, her eyes blazing. "Prepare all weapons. We end this now." The crew responded with a roar, their spirits unbreakable. They were on the edge of victory, standing against an enemy that defied reality itself. The final battle was upon them. The UES Valor led the charge, its powerful engines blazing as it cut through the darkness. Behind it, the human fleet followed in tight formation, weapons firing in every direction. The anomaly's shadowy ships swarmed around them, attacking with relentless fury. General Samantha Hayes stood firm on the bridge, her eyes locked on the swirling core ahead. It pulsed with dark energy, its tendrils lashing out like the arms of a monstrous beast. She knew they had to destroy it, or the battle would never end. "Target the core," she commanded, her voice steady and fierce. "All ships, concentrate fire on that thing. We take it out. We end this." Colonel Ramirez relayed the orders, his fingers flying over the controls. All batteries locked on target. Firing in 3, 2, 1. Fire. A deafening roar echoed through the ship as the Valor's main cannons unleashed a torrent of energy. Massive beams of plasma shot forward, tearing through the darkness and slamming into the core. The rest of the fleet followed, their combined firepower creating a blinding wave of destruction. The core shuddered under the assault, its surface rippling as cracks of light spread across it. But then, with a roar that echoed through space, it fought back. Bolts of dark energy exploded from its center, slamming into the fleet with unimaginable force. The Valor shook violently, alarms blaring as the Aegis shields flickered. Sparks flew from damaged consoles, and the crew struggled to stay on their feet. Shields down to 40%, shouted an officer, panic in his voice. "We can't take another hit like that." Hayes gritted her teeth. "Hold the line. We don't fall back. Keep firing." The fleet continued its assault, blasting the core with everything they had. But the enemy wasn't giving up. The dark ships swarmed around them, their energy weapons pounding the Aegis shields mercilessly. One of the cruisers, the UES Valiant, took a direct hit from the core's energy bolt. Its shields collapsed, and the ship was torn apart in a blinding explosion. The crew watched in horror as debris scattered through space, the lives of hundreds lost in an instant. Colonel Ramirez's face was pale. "We're losing ships fast. If we don't end this soon." Hayes's eyes burned with fury. "We're not leaving anyone behind. Not today." She turned to Dr. Ethan Parker, who was furiously working at his station. "Parker, tell me you have something." Parker's hands flew over his console, his face tight with concentration. "The Aegis shields can't hold much longer, but if we redirect all power to the main cannon, we might have enough energy for one final shot. A focused blast right at the core's center." Hayes didn't hesitate. "Do it. All ships, cover the Valor. We're making our final move." The fleet shifted, forming a protective barrier around the flagship. Fighters swarmed out, intercepting the dark ships with fierce determination. Explosions lit up the void as the battle reached its peak, chaos erupting on all sides. Inside the Valor, the lights flickered as power was rerouted to the main cannon. Consoles went dark, and the hum of the engines dropped to a low whisper. The ship shuddered as its energy reserves were pushed to the limit. Parker's voice was tense. "Main cannon charge, ready to fire." Hayes's eyes were locked on the core, which continued to pulse with malevolent power. She could feel its hatred, its hunger. It was a being of pure destruction, and it would consume them all if given the chance. Not today. Fire. The Valor's main cannon roared to life, a beam of pure, concentrated energy shooting forward like a spear of light. It tore through the darkness, piercing the core's heart with a blinding flash. The core screamed. It was a sound that defied explanation, a howl of rage and pain that shook the entire fleet. Cracks spread across its surface, glowing with an intense white light. Then it exploded. The shockwave was immense, a wave of energy that rippled through space. The dark ships shattered, their forms disintegrating as the power holding them together was destroyed. The anomaly's tendrils writhed in agony before collapsing in on themselves, consumed by the light. The fleet was thrown back, their shields flickering as they were buffeted by the explosion. The Valor trembled, its hull groaning under the pressure. But the Aegis shields held, absorbing the impact and protecting the crew from the deadly blast. Silence followed. The darkness was gone, replaced by the soft glow of distant stars. The anomaly had vanished, its power broken. The battlefield was littered with debris, the remains of both ally and enemy scattered through space. Hayes exhaled slowly, her body sagging with exhaustion. But her eyes were fierce, her spirit unbroken. They had won. Colonel Ramirez's voice was soft, full of disbelief. We did it. It's over." Dr. Parker collapsed back in his chair, his face pale but triumphant. "The anomaly's energy signature is gone. We destroyed it, for good." Cheers erupted across the bridge. They had faced the darkness and emerged victorious. Humanity had answered the call, and they had changed the galaxy forever. Hayes looked out at the stars, her eyes filled with determination. They had won this battle, but she knew their journey was far from over. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers, and humanity's story was just beginning. Turning to her crew, she spoke with pride. "Set course for Earth. Let's go home." The UES Valor turned gracefully, its engines flaring as it led the fleet away from the battlefield. They had faced the impossible and conquered it. Now, they would face whatever came next together. The battlefield was silent now, the echoes of the great explosion fading into the void. The UEA's Valor and the remaining human fleet drifted among the debris, survivors of a battle that had shaken the galaxy. Wreckage floated around them, fragments of both friend and foe, silent witnesses to the chaos that had unfolded. General Samantha Hayes stood on the bridge, her gaze fixed on the empty space where the anomaly had been. Even with its destruction, she could still feel the lingering darkness, like a shadow in her mind. But they had survived. Humanity had faced the unknown and emerged victorious. Colonel Ramirez approached, his face weary but triumphant. "General, all surviving ships are reporting in. We took heavy losses, but we made it. The enemy has been completely wiped out." Hayes nodded, her shoulders heavy with the weight of their victory. "Begin recovery operations. We're bringing our people home." As rescue teams were deployed, Dr. Ethan Parker studied the sensor readings at his station, his brow furrowed in thought. "General, you should see this." Hayes moved to his side, looking at the screen. It showed the energy readings from the anomaly, now fading into nothingness. But within the data was something unexpected, a faint signal, weak but persistent, coming from deep within the debris field. "What is that?" Hayes asked, her eyes narrowing. "A distress signal." Parker nodded slowly. "Yes, but it's not human. And it's not like anything we've seen before." A chill ran down Hayes' spine. After everything they had faced, was there still more waiting for them? "Can you pinpoint its location?" "Already on it," Parker replied, fingers flying over the controls. "It's coming from the largest fragment of the core, whatever's left of that thing." Hayes turned to Ramirez. "Send a recovery team. I want that fragment secured. If there are any answers to be found, we're going to get them." Moments later, a shuttle departed from the Valor, weaving through the wreckage towards the shattered core. The team of engineers and scientists approached with caution, their lights scanning the twisted metal and fractured energy conduits. As they neared the source of the signal, they found something shocking. Deep within the core's remains was a metallic sphere, its surface covered in intricate symbols that glowed faintly with a ghostly light. It was pulsing, each flash in rhythm with the signal. Lieutenant Harris, leading the recovery team, reported back with awe in his voice. "General, we found something. I don't even know how to describe it. It's like a machine, but ancient, and it's still active." Hayes' heart skipped a beat. "Bring it aboard." "Carefully. I want it in the science lab under maximum security. If that thing is still transmitting, I want to know who, or what, is listening." The crew worked swiftly, securing the sphere and transporting it to the Valor. In the lab, Dr. Parker began his analysis, scanning the object from every angle. Its surface was smooth and cold, but the symbols seemed to shift and change, defying logic. "This technology, it's far beyond anything we've encountered," Parker murmured, his eyes wide with fascination. "It's not just a machine. It's alive in some way." Hayes watched the sphere, her instincts screaming that they were standing on the edge of something monumental. "Can you translate the symbols?" Parker hesitated. "Not exactly, but I can cross-reference them with the anomaly's data patterns. It might take some time, but I think I can decode the message." As Parker worked, the sphere continued to pulse, its light growing brighter. The rhythm changed, faster, more insistent. It was like a heartbeat, echoing through the lab. Then, without warning, the lights in the lab flickered. The ship's systems shuddered, and the monitors displayed static. The sphere glowed brilliantly, and a burst of energy surged through the room. Parker was thrown back, hitting the wall with a grunt. Hayes shouted for medical assistance as she ran to his side. "Parker, are you all right?" He coughed, shaking his head as he struggled to his feet. I saw something. When it activated, I saw visions. Stars dying, worlds consumed, a darkness spreading across the galaxy." His voice trembled. "It's a warning." Hayes' blood ran cold. "A warning of what?" Parker looked at her, his face pale with fear. "It called itself the Harbinger, and it's only the beginning." The sphere's glow dimmed, its pulsing slowing to a steady rhythm, as if it were waiting, watching. Hayes straightened, her resolve hardening. Whatever this harbinger is, we're going to find out. And we'll be ready. She turned to Ramirez, her voice firm. Inform command. We're not going home yet. We have a new mission, and a new enemy. The crew prepared for the unknown, their victory now overshadowed by the new threat looming on the horizon. The galaxy would never be the same. The UES Valor hung motionless in space, its hull scarred from battle, but still standing strong. Inside the ship's science lab, the ancient sphere sat on a containment platform, its glowing symbols pulsating with a steady, ominous rhythm. It felt like the calm before a storm. General Samantha Hayes stood with Dr. Ethan Parker, her eyes fixed on the sphere. "You're sure about this?" she asked, her voice tense. Parker nodded, his face pale. "I've triple-checked the data. The symbols are transmitting a message. A countdown." "A countdown to what?" Hayes demanded, dread tightening her chest. Parker's voice trembled. "An awakening. Whatever created this, it's waking up. And it's not just one. It's a network spread across the galaxy." This was just a beacon, a signal to the others. Hayes felt a chill run down her spine. "How long do we have?" Parker looked at the display, where the countdown continued, each second ticking away. "Less than an hour. And when it reaches 0, the harbinger will arrive." Alarms blared across the ship. Colonel Ramirez's voice came over the intercom, urgency sharp in his tone. "General, we're detecting massive energy spikes across the sector. It's like the fabric of space is tearing." Hayes' eyes widened. "It's already starting. Parker, is there any way to stop it?" Parker's fingers flew over the control panel, his mind racing. "I might be able to disrupt the signal, but I need to interface with the sphere directly. It's risky. If I make a mistake, it could accelerate the countdown." Hayes hesitated only for a moment. "Do it. It's our only chance." In the command center, Ramirez monitored the sensors, his heart pounding. Space around them was distorting, ripples of energy bending light and time. It was like reality itself was unraveling. "General, you need to see this," he called out. Hayes rushed to the viewport. Her breath caught in her throat as she saw the rift forming before them. An enormous tear in space, crackling with dark energy. And from within the rift, shadows began to emerge. Massive, ominous shapes, their forms shifting and twisting, as if made of darkness itself. Parker's voice echoed over the comms. "The harbinger, it's coming through. I'm running out of time." In the lab, Parker linked his console to the sphere, his mind synchronizing with the ancient technology. His vision blurred as symbols flooded his consciousness, alien thoughts and emotions overwhelming him. It was like touching the mind of a god or a demon. The symbols glowed brighter, the rhythm speeding up. The sphere's light became blinding, filling the room with a pulsating energy. Parker gritted his teeth, focusing his mind, searching for the signal source. I found it," he shouted, his voice shaking. "It's not just a signal. It's a lock. It's holding back the harbinger, keeping it in stasis. If I break the signal, I can seal the rift." Hayes' voice came through, steady and strong. "Then do it, Parker. Seal it before they come through." Parker's hands moved on the console, his mind fighting against the sphere's will. It resisted him, the ancient intelligence pushing back, its anger washing over him. It was aware, and it did not want to be stopped. The harbinger's shadowy forms drew closer, their eyes glowing with a cold, merciless light. Their shapes became clearer, titanic beings, their bodies surrounded by swirling darkness, mouths opening in silent roars that seemed to shake the universe. The rift widened, lightning crackling around its edges as more shadows poured through. The galaxy trembled before their power. Parker screamed as the sphere's power surged, its mind attacking his own. His vision darkened, shadows clawing at his soul. But he held on, his will stronger than the ancient malice. With a final push, Parker broke the signal, shattering the countdown. The sphere's light flickered, its glow fading as the symbols went dark. The rift shuddered, its edges collapsing in on themselves. The shadows howled, their forms warping as the portal closed, their bodies torn apart by the collapsing space. One by one, they were pulled back into the void, their screams echoing through the cosmos. The rift sealed with a blinding flash, and then silence. The stars returned to their normal brilliance, the dark energy gone. The Harbinger had been banished. Parker collapsed to the floor, his body limp. Medical teams rushed in, stabilizing him as Hayes and Ramirez arrived. Hayes knelt by his side, her eyes full of concern. "You did it, Parker. You saved us all." Parker's eyes fluttered open, a weak smile on his lips. "It's not over. The Harbinger. It's still out there." This was just the beginning. Hayes looked at the now silent sphere, its power extinguished. For now, she knew he was right. The galaxy had faced the impossible and survived, but the threat was far from over. Standing tall, she turned to Ramirez. "Inform command. We're returning to Earth. And tell them, we need to prepare. The Harbinger is coming." The UES Valor turned, its engines roaring to life as it began the long journey home. Behind them, the void was calm once more, but the echoes of the Harbinger's rage lingered, a shadow over the galaxy's future. Humanity had faced the darkness and won, but the war was just beginning.